Guys, I've got something cool to tell you about. As an engineering leader, a manager, and an engineer myself, I'm geeking out over a new product I'm just discovering that helps me with each of these points of view. The great team at SEMA, builders of the SEMA Intelligence Platform, have been working on what they call the Product Roadmap Radar. It's this integrated solution that uses generative AI to observe your code and Jira in order to summarize, synthesize, and make it easier to deliver your roadmap. It not only helps keep your roadmap on track, but it helps reduce the time engineers spend in meetings. Cue all the engineers clapping. The Product Roadmap Radar is extremely easy to set up. This only takes about 5 minutes. Just enable your integrations and let AI do all the mapping for you. My favorite part? I'm glad you asked. The radar doesn't just tell you about your roadmap. It suggests changes you need to make based on the code that's been written and the stories that have been addressed. No commenting, no special setup, all generative AI. It gives you an outside view of your roadmap based on the code and projects a target completion date based on outstanding work and activity. Again, no comments, no special setup. It even detects shadow work when development is being done but Jira isn't being updated. I'm pretty jazzed about it, and I think you will be too. Take a second to watch a short but awesome demo video. Go to codestory.co/PRR to watch it today. You'll like what you see. This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API platform, trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500 and over 40 million developers. Tap into APIs from 18,000 plus companies to power agents that make smarter decisions. Learn more at postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by Melee Search. Today, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And Melee Search gives your users the experience they need with lightning-fast performance, full-text search, AI usage, and multimodal capabilities. Melee Search delivers relevant results in less than the blink of an eye. Use the promo code CODESTORY at checkout to get 2 months free at meleesearch.com. That's MEILI search.com.
And I remembered that what let Odeo and Twitter and Shopify, all of the Web 2.0 things start was a shift in the application frameworks. We went from building big JavaScript or Java and PHP apps to Ruby on Rails. I started feeling that the Claude Code and agentic programming and all these other things were coming out. Cursor, like maybe this is like Ruby on Rails. Maybe this is a sort of a sea change moment where all of a sudden we can build things faster and easier. And maybe we could do that. I'm Rabble. I'm the founder of Rabble Labs, and I'm working on building out social media protocols.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their
Our
back.
company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve more.
I was proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was a
Yes,
pain.
we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really
It's
want it.
not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today how Evan Hinshaw Plath, aka Rabble, is building social labs that are authentic, caring, and sustainable. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. Don't settle for less when you can have more, MOR, with Paddle, your merchant of record. Eliminate the headaches of payments, grow your revenue everywhere, and focus on what you do best, building your product. Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This episode is brought to you by PropelOff. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use PropelOff. PropelOff is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, PropelOff adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When off is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with PropelOff. Check them out at propeloff.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. Evan Henshaw Plath, also known as Rabble, was born in Berkeley while his mom was a student. His parents were hippies and he grew up near Silicon Valley, which gave him access to work with startups as early as high school. He founded Odeo, which eventually became Twitter. He got the name Rabble because it was founded by three Evans, which didn't work, so he went with his online nickname. He has a cool track record of working not only on Twitter, but Flickr, Palm, and other big names. He lives in New Zealand, enjoying all the outdoor activities, and participates in activism and digital rights and environmentalism. Being a vegetarian, he admits that his comfort food is Mexican cuisine, which he doesn't get a lot of in the land of the Kiwis. Rabble was disappointed when Twitter shut down its open app capabilities. He wanted something like Twitter, but built to where someone couldn't take away his access. He started to dig into protocols and eventually landed in San Francisco to tell his friends that he was going to make social media work like email and messaging. This is the creation story of Rabble Labs.
I had been very upset when Twitter had shut down its open app ecosystem in 2012 when they said, you have to use the Twitter app, you can't use the open API. And it felt like now I had to ask for permission to innovate. So I went out and said, okay, I've long since left the company, but I want a way in which I can do something Twitter-like, but where I don't have to ask for permission for Twitter and where Twitter can't take away my OAuth keys. They can't deauthorize my app. They can't remove me from the App Store. And so I was studying these emerging protocols. And eventually in 2016, 2017, I came across this protocol by this hacker who lives on a sailboat off the coast of New Zealand. His name was Dominic Tarr, and he was an incredibly prolific JavaScript developer. And he wanted to be able to talk to his friends without being able to connect to the internet because he lived on a sailboat. And so he built this protocol called Secure Scuttlebutt that let him do all of the social activities, but without an active internet connection. And whenever his phone got close to someone else, it would sync. And so I said, well, maybe this is a way in which we can rebuild the dream of an open social web 2.0 now with new technology. I then went to a bunch of friends in San Francisco and I said, hey, I've got this idea. We're gonna make social media work like the web and email. And everyone said, oh, Rabble, you're crazy. The neat thing about the startup investor ecosystem is people said, you're crazy and it won't work, but I will give you the money to try it. And so I raised $1 million and I pitched it to folks, and BizStone gave me some money. And then I went to Jack and I said, hey, Jack, let's do this thing. He was actually really excited about it. And then he went to the general counsel and the other executives at Twitter and said, hey, Rabble wants to do this social media protocol. What do you guys think? The Twitter executives are all like, this competes with Twitter. You can't invest in it, and Twitter won't put any money into it. And so I went off and I did it, and I built this thing, and I tried to figure out how to make the pieces work. And the technology didn't work at the time. Like, we built a whole world of which we were very difficultly struggling with trying to make it work. And everyone said, no one will ever adopt this. I tried to convince Jay Graber, who's now the CEO of Blue Sky, to join me to co-found it. And she thought it was a crazy idea and didn't want to join. But we basically were a community of people trying to figure out a new way to build all this technology and have it all work together. And no one ever used what we were building. So for years, we were working on this stuff and no one used it. We would get like hundreds of users. And then eventually, Elon Musk takes over Twitter. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on? That moment led us to be like, oh, now we have an opportunity. And the protocol we had built didn't work. But some people had been inspired by that protocol, specifically this Brazilian Bitcoin hacker named Fiat Joff. And he had done a version of it that did work called Noster. We dropped the app we had built. We built another app entirely from scratch called Nos, which means us in Spanish. And I said, okay, great. So I raised some more money and we put together a team and we had a very traditional startup team. And we went and we worked on it and we were going to build an app and it looked beautiful and it felt good. And again, not many people used it. we kept working on it. We kept thinking about it. We kept iterating. We kept reading versions of it. People thought it was beautiful, but they didn't use it a ton. Then last year, I started using much more of the agentic programming stuff. And I said, is there a way we can move faster? Because I really wanted to be able to not manage people. I wanted to be able to build it myself, get my hands dirty in it. And I missed that coding. I missed that building of software. And I remembered that what let Odeo and Twitter and Shopify, all of the Web 2.0 things start was a shift in the application frameworks. We went from building big JavaScript or Java and PHP apps to Ruby on Rails. I started feeling that the Claude Code and agentic programming and all these other things that were coming out, Cursor, like maybe this is like Ruby on Rails. Maybe this is a sort of a sea change moment where all of a sudden we can build things faster and easier. And maybe we could do that. And so for all of the beginning of this year, I sat down and I had two jobs. One was the engineering manager job. I was the CTO. I went on podcasts, talked at conferences, dealt with hiring, dealt with the business operations, talked to my product lead, talked to my CTO, and we had the daily stand-ups and we were going along and we were chugging out and we were fixing bugs and building the app. In the evening, when I wasn't doing manager time, I would go off and I would build prototypes of apps myself from scratch using the new emerging large language models. And it got to the point where I was more productive in my evening time building my own apps than the entire team was in the main development. It was bonkers. What I realized is that when you could keep it all in your head, and when you can have a system that is able to coordinate the development, essentially, I have all these Claude Code sessions and Cursor sessions running in parallel at the same time, doing different tasks. It's the equivalent of managing an engineering team, except I don't have to have all of those meetings. I don't have to get everything written out in GitHub issues. I don't have to get all of the product roadmaps, and I don't have to do all of these Miro boards and figure out how do we get ourselves all on the same page. Instead, I can keep it all more in my head. And I had this realization that the constraints on how we're building software are in the process of changing. So earlier this year, I went back to Jack Dorsey and I said, hey, I think we need to do an experiment. I think we need to do an experiment which says we need to build software in a different way. And Jack had been looking at Block and figuring out how he, as the CEO of a 10,000 person company, might be able to adapt these things. And I said, let's do an experiment. Let's create a new kind of organization. Let's not make it venture capital backed. Let's not make it the traditional structure of a PM and a tech lead and a designer and then a design sprint that leads to a developer sprint. This feels outdated, and maybe we don't have to do that anymore with this new agentic programming stuff that we're able to do. And so we raised a little fund, and it's a nonprofit fund. We're hosted by Open Collective, and we do all open source work. We said, let's do it a different way. We got together in Switzerland in May, and we rented this weird Swiss chalet thing. And we had 5 or 6 of us there. And we spent a week and we said, let's build an app from zero to being able to launch it. And this app was called chorus.community. It was a proof of concept. But essentially what we said is we were able to go from zero to a working app. And it's a social app. So you can go in and you can create groups and you can collaboration stuff. And there's a mobile version and a desktop version. But the special thing about this group app was that it had a Cashew, a Bitcoin wallet in there. And so each group was able to then crowdfund it for itself. And so we had built an entire system from initial idea to launching to where it handled crowdfunding, it handled wallets, it handled money, it handled groups, it handled privacy, it handled collaboration, it handled trust and safety and management, everything else. And we did it without even very much looking at the code. Instead, we were having conversations with the AI about the code and building it together. And so that just blew my mind. I was like, everything we thought we knew about software development, everything we thought we knew about startups, everything we thought we knew about what kind of work needs to get done changed. And it changed in a way that isn't the same as saying, okay, now we don't have jobs, because that's the fear. Large language models are going to come in and they're going to replace the jobs. And that's not really what happened. What happened was our role in the process of software development changed. the needs of software development changed and who is doing what kinds of work changed. So our designer, Sebastian, got really excited about this. And he went from going and working on Figma, where he would do like wireframes and then do designs and then make sure it was pixel perfect and then hand it off to the developer. And then the developer would go off and build it and then give it back to the designer. And the designer would go, oh, you didn't do this right. You didn't do that. Instead, we sat down and I said, okay, Sebastian, that's his name. Here's how the tools work. And we just spent a day like going through how he can build his own software. And he had never been a developer. He said, oh, what can I do? And he can do anything you want. And he went back and looked at designs that he had built from a couple years ago that had never gotten built. Because you know that we see this with designers all the time. They produce designs of apps that they want to see and they want to have, but it never comes together because it's not a priority. Like the bug fixes are the priority, or some client need is the priority, or whatever it is, always has a bigger priority than the dreams of the designers and the dreams of the developers. There's stuff to be done. And in a month, he went from not having built anything at all, understanding software really well, but not having built anything, to leading the development on a new product that we're going to launch.
I'm curious about, and I don't know where to start here because this is all really interesting. There's lots of twists and turns here. Maybe it's for the protocol, for Verse, for Rabble Labs, for what you're calling this agentic approach. I don't know, but what's the MVP, Rabble? Where does that start? And then we'll go from there. Tell me about that.
The MVP is a great question. So our MVP was that chorus app that we built in a weekend at this Airbnb in Switzerland. The idea was not just can we build it, but can we build to learn? The idea behind an MVP, it isn't the beta version. It isn't the 1.0 version. It's the minimum viable thing that you need to learn. And I think that in Lean Startup, we thought, oh, maybe I'll be able to build this. I'll build a landing page and I'll build the marketing material and then I'll see if I can get people to click on buy and I'll be able to test it. And now we're able to, instead of building the prototypes of it, the clickable prototypes, everything else, the MVP is the running code. One of the things that came up was like, okay, if it's running code, are you afraid of technical debt? This is another thing that I think is with the agentic programming is so different. It used to be that you would fix the code. But with this new system, what you do is you write unit tests, you have the language models write the unit tests. You have the language models write these specs. The language models describe how the application works. And if a part of it isn't working, you take the entire part out, take what it was supposed to do, and you rebuild it from scratch. And so our model of technical debt, of this is like an endless craftsman process of building it, I think we need to throw that out. And I think we need to say, hey, look, our MVPs can be running code. Our MVPs are about learning, and the cost of throwing it away is low. And so we should just go for it. One of the things that people talk about vibe coding a lot, and during this hackathon, we're like, this isn't vibe coding, this is YOLO coding. We're just going to sit there, pedal the metal, drive forward, build it, and each time the vehicle crashes, like each time the app goes off the rails, you just revert the commits and try again and record what you learn. And that's the new MVP.
This episode is sponsored by Mailtrap, an email platform developers love. Try for free at mailtrap.io. That's mailtrap.io. This episode is sponsored by Postman. APIs are the foundation of reliable AI, and reliable APIs start with Postman. Trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500, Postman is the platform that helps over 40 million developers build and scale the APIs behind their most critical business workflows. With Postman, teams get centralized access to the latest LLMs and APIs, MCP support, and no-code workflows, all in one platform. Quickly integrate critical tools and build multi-step agents without writing a single line of code. Start building smarter, more reliable agents today. Visit postman.com/podcast/codestory to learn more. That's postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by .tech Domains. Picture this. You dig deep and think of an amazing name for your tech startup, spending months to perfect it. And then you settle for a cluttered .com domain with fillers and added words. Yeah, it's really disappointing. That is, unless you get a clean, sharp, and memorable .tech domain. .tech signals loud and clear that tech is at your startup's core. A .tech domain shows your focus and intent, building credibility with VCs and customers, and anyone who sees it knows instantly this is a tech startup. If you are building a tech startup, you want a .tech domain, and that's because it just makes sense. And if I were you, I'd skip the workaround domains and go straight for the loudest signal. Head over to get.tech/codestory or a domain registrar like GoDaddy or Namecheap and grab the perfect .tech domain today. That's get.tech/codestory. Guys, I've got something cool to tell you about. As an engineering leader, a manager, and an engineer myself, I'm geeking out over a new product I'm just discovering that helps me with each of these points of view. The great team at SEMA, builders of the SEMA Intelligence Platform, have been working on what they call the Product Roadmap Radar. It's this integrated solution that uses generative AI to observe your code and Jira in order to summarize, synthesize, and make it easier to deliver your roadmap. It not only helps keep your roadmap on track, but it helps reduce the time engineers spend in meetings. Cue all the engineers clapping. The Product Roadmap Radar is extremely easy to set up. This only takes about 5 minutes. Just enable your integrations and let AI do all the mapping for you. My favorite part? I'm glad you asked. The radar doesn't just tell you about your roadmap. It suggests changes you need to make based on the code that's been written and the stories that have been addressed. No commenting, no special setup, all generative AI. It gives you an outside view of your roadmap based on the code and projects a target completion date based on outstanding work and activity. Again, no comments, no special setup. It even detects shadow work when development is being done but Jira isn't being updated. I'm pretty jazzed about it, and I think you will be too. Take a second to watch a short but awesome demo video. Go to codestory.co/PRR to watch it today. You'll like what you see. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. As a startup, you face unique challenges to stay competitive. You and your team need to stay focused on your product, not your payments. You need to do more, MOR, and DIY less. With Paddle. Paddle is your merchant of record, becoming the seller of record for your SaaS transactions, enabling your team to focus on what's important, your product. Paddle handles all payment management across multiple gateways and methods, taking ownership of tax liability while remaining compliant with regulations across all markets. The platform handles all aspects of SaaS billing, billing models, upgrades, add-on, trials, and more. Let's look at the results. MOR revenue optimization is built into Paddle and accounts for up to 16% higher conversion rates, reduced payment failures, localized pricing, and churn prevention, recovering 40% of cancellations. Their developer-friendly tools are API first with comprehensive documentation, removing the burden from your engineers. With Paddle as your merchant of record, you'll generate more revenue, find and keep more customers, grow faster, and stay compliant everywhere. So what are you waiting for? Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. Okay, so then from that point, from chorus, we'll go back from chorus there. I'm curious to dive into a little more how you progress from that point, and I think that gets into where you went this agentic route, and where does the traditional idea of roadmap come into play here? Right, the idea of like, what's the next most important thing to build or to address, and I'm curious where you're going to take it because there's lots of different ways it could go based on where you've already said. But so tell me about that.
Yeah, so we have a vision. Can we have an internet protocol that replaces the way in which the big web 2.0, the big social media platforms work? And we have the underlying technology pieces that work. We have the libraries and the tools and the protocols and the specs. But we don't have the users. We don't have the implementation on top of that. And so we have to have a vision of what we're building. And that vision is that we want to build social collaborative stuff. And we looked at what's out there. We said, look, Facebook groups. If we look at Facebook groups, it's like the last part of Facebook that's still standing that really works. There are all sorts of problems with it. But one of the main problems with Facebook groups is the business model behind it. Instead of the group supporting itself, instead of people having a membership or instead of people paying for it, you use Facebook groups and then they capture your ideas, your advertising, and then they run advertising at you. what we see with things like Patreon and Substack, Open Collective, is that we have the potential for another business model. And so our goal is saying, okay, in general, let's build an open Facebook groups-like thing, and let's build a set of economic incentives, a business model behind it, where communities can fund themselves. And we're doing that by combining a bit of fintech stuff and a bit of the social protocol and building prototypes around it. And we're not off on our own. One of the people on our team is going and talking to these communities. He's talking to people who run Facebook groups and run subreddits and run community centers and run the garden club and say, okay, what are your problems? What do you need? How do you need to come up and be with it? And so we have this vision like, okay, we're going to liberate Facebook groups, provide a system that has a better business model with privacy encryption where users control their own spaces. And then we're going to talk to these groups, these who want to use it, and we're going to find out what their overwhelming needs are. Because even though we have our vision and where we're going, the reality is that it's all dependent on what users actually want. And so we have found community leaders who want to help us prototype all this.
You're saying we, and there's been an interesting twist and turn that you mentioned to me around team, right? I'm curious about how you built your team and how you changed your team and what that looks like now. Tell me about that evolution. I'm curious about the people you look for that are the right people to help you with this. There's so much there. Tell me about it.
The team is the most important thing. And I've done a lot of different changes on the team, and I'm not feeling like I'm the best person to answer this question because I feel like I messed it up a lot of times. But there's a way in which you can find people and you identify them and you can figure out that they have a certain level of creativity and drive and initiative. Those folks who do that and have that excitement, they're not necessarily the good employees, but they are, I think, really important. I think that as an entrepreneur, one of the most important things you can do is figure out how to find people. One of the things that surprises people sometimes is I hired Jack Dorsey into Odeo. So I hired him into Twitter, and then he rose up through the ranks and became the CEO once we pivoted. And the other person I was interviewing and trying to recruit was Moxie, who created Signal. And there's something about how do you identify iconoclastic people who don't fit in the normal box, but are incredibly creative and driven and able to do the work. And so what I realized when I switched to doing this agentic programming model is that I should stop thinking about our company as a company. I've been thinking about it as a team. Like, we'd done lots of team building exercises. We had team identity and we had the shirts, and people felt very part of a team. And what I think we need now going forward is not your live or die team. What we need now is to say, actually, it's more like a network of people who are collaborating. And so it's almost like how you think of a pop star musician. It's like a pop star musician, if you're Lady Gaga, you have a few people who are on staff who work for the Lady Gaga organization. And then when she goes to do a new album or record a music video or set up a music tour or do any of these things, she brings in a much larger network of people who are specialists in that. And not just the dancers, but the person who's doing the recruiting of the dancers, the person who's doing the choreography, the person who's doing the costumes. And if we can think of what we're doing not as a single organization, but a cloud of people who are collaborating, a creative mob, then I think we can take advantage of people's skills in a much more powerful way. And as long as you make sure that the money works and people have enough money to live on and they feel secure in that way, we can be so much more creative, because then you don't have to do, you are an employee or you aren't an employee. You are in us or not in us. One of the things that surprised me so much about Odeo in the early days of Twitter is we did not have a really good idea of who worked for the company. We had this door, we were on South Park in San Francisco, and sometimes people would walk in, and the guy who designed the website, the original Twitter website and how it worked, was this guy Dunstan Orchard, and he had a day job of designing the Apple homepage. But Apple didn't let him release a new version of apple.com very often. It was like once every month or so. Dunstan wanted to be more creative, and so he would come hang out in our office, and then when we needed some design stuff, he did some design stuff. And he built some stuff. And it wasn't his job. And we had a bunch of other people who did the same thing. We had this guy, Kellen Elliott McRae, who went on to be CTO of Etsy and now is like SVP at Adobe. But Kellen didn't work for the company, but he was a great engineer and he thought what we were doing was interesting. And so he would just hang out at the office and write code sometimes. I think one of the most interesting things when you're being an innovative startup is how do you bring people together and how do you take advantage of it without the structures of bureaucracy that you need when the company is just running versus sort of creating a new future. And with agentic programming, we can bring people together and we can collaborate in this really lightweight way we couldn't before. So, my designer who is now a developer, that kind of thing. And we're trying to find models for how to fund this stuff and how to build it that's based on open source, that's based on a sustainable business model that isn't based necessarily on venture capital, because I've done a lot of work with venture capital and some of the VCs are great, but so much of the time they optimize for the wrong things and they're not creating the transformational businesses that they hope for.
This episode is brought to you by Propel Off. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use Propel Auth. Propel Auth is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, Propel Auth adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with Propel Auth. Check them out at propelauth.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. This episode is sponsored by Search. In today's digital landscape, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone, and you need a user experience that drives customer satisfaction. You need Search. Search has lightning-fast performance, returning answers in less than 50 milliseconds. Yeah, you heard that right. Faster than the blink of an eye. The open-source AI search engine is plug-and-play, so you can get up and running in minutes with smart presets, allowing you to start searching through your data with zero configuration. Search utilizes advanced full-text search and AI, ensuring your results are ultra-relevant with semantic depth. It's multimodal, supporting images, videos, and audio, along with being federated, i.e. searching across multiple data sources. And it's developer-friendly. Whether you're building a content-rich website or enterprise application, Search delivers the experience your users expect and deserve. For a limited time, CodeStory users can get 2 months free. Use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, at checkout. Just go to MailySearch.com and get started today. That's MEILI search.com. As you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built thus far with this specific venture, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the fact that we're fearless in trying new things. I have kept the business going, and I don't really know why I keep the business going. I don't quite know how it happened, but we found a business model that works. We found a way to get revenue. We've become a sort of a research institution where we're building new protocols and researching it. And I'm most proud of the fact that I'm able to do that and be able to find amazing people and work within a community and keep it going in a way that makes me excited to get up in the morning and work on it, that makes me want to not step away from my computer and go to sleep. And that when I get to talk to people about it or get to show the apps we've built, people around me become excited about what we're able to do.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake that you've made and how you and your team responded to it.
So my biggest mistake is that every time I see a startup that is really got traction, I was like the 60th user on GitHub and Odeo and Twitter and everything else. My biggest mistake is that over and over again, when something is going to take off, I get excited about the next thing and I go off and try and do something new. And I don't stick through it until stock options vest. Yeah.
Sure.
Which has led to a life of super interesting creativity. I think the other mistake that I made is that I assumed that there was a way in which you were supposed to do things. I assumed that there was a right way to do things and that we should just follow the process and we should follow the roles. And I, as a CEO, should do what CEOs are supposed to do. And I kept thinking, oh, this is the thing I'm supposed to do, so I will do it. Or we're supposed to have a product lead. We're supposed to have a technology lead, and we're supposed to have junior and senior developers. We're supposed to have a designer. And I think that the mistake was sort of cargo culting other people's ideas about how the team should work, about how we should do the work, about what the business model should look like, about what the business should be, what each person's role is, and not realizing that the process of creating startups is incredibly messy. Any story you hear like this on a podcast is a retroactive sense-making of the chaos. And so just embrace the chaos and focus on being effective, not following the right forms of what you're supposed to do.
Let's move forward. I'm curious about future. You've touched on some things that probably give me a picture of where you're headed, but I'm curious about the future. What does it look like from a technology standpoint and from a team standpoint?
That's a great question. I don't know what the future looks like, which is ironic because I've spent my entire career building things that are very sort of future-looking. My goal is to find a new way of working and a way of working that makes me happy, a way of working that makes me successful. I'm not interested in becoming the CEO of a company where I have thousands of people working for me. I'm interested in building a set of technologies that people really want to use, building apps that are compelling. I'm interested in being able to continue to work in a way that makes me happy and feels like I'm having an impact. And I'm trying to find a way in which I can have a network of people who build interesting things, and I can be part of that network, and that everybody in that network is able to make enough money to cover their livelihoods so that they can do the work. That is really my goal. And my goal is, of course, to change the world, because that's what we always want to do. And I want to look at what we did with Twitter and not make the same mistakes. Twitter was this incredibly innovative platform that you didn't have to ask permission to build Twitter apps. And then the business model became advertising, and they shut down that open ecosystem. And so I want us to be able to live in a world where if you have an idea of what to build, and it is a social app, that you don't have to ask permission for anyone else to build it, and they can't take it away from you. And so I want to build that for myself. I want it to exist. But I also really desperately want other people to be able to build their dreams and their interesting ideas without needing to come to me or anyone else for permission to do that.
Let's switch to you, Rabble. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I would say Stuart Brand from the Whole Earth Catalog. The Long Now Foundation is someone who hasn't had an entire career where he was looking at what can we do in society, what can we do with technology, what are the systems we build, and how do they work? And he has done so many projects that are impressive. He wrote a book about architecture, about how buildings learn. He built the Whole Earth Catalog, the first way in which hippies learned about each other and learned about what you could buy and what you could do in culture that combined them. He co-founded The Well, which was the first online forum where people were talking about stuff and cultivating it. And so to me, that's a career that constantly built new things, constantly built things in community, and was incredibly creative. And to me, he's a hero that we should all look to in terms of what is a good life for the innovator.
Rabble, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person? Having gone down this road a bit, I've heard a piece of advice already. I'm curious if it's the same or if you have a new piece.
Listen to people, but don't listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they mean and where they're coming from. People will tell you what you want to hear. So if you show someone your app or your thing, people fall into like the parents seeing their child's artwork. And so you come and say, here's my beautiful app or here's my beautiful idea. And you'll go there and then people will see it and be like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. It's so beautiful. They'll put it up on the fridge. But that's not a useful thing if you're an entrepreneur, because that gives you false signal. And so what you want to hear and listen to when you talk to people about what you're doing. And you should talk to people about it, be excited about it, pitch it. But listen to what their needs are, listen to what their desires are, listen to what they're trying to accomplish. There was a saying we had when we were in the office building Twitter, which is that the medium changes. So we were in the process of going from desktop web and dumb phones to smartphones. But the humanity stays the same. Humans have been the same for a couple 100,000 years. We were hunter-gatherers, and then we lived in rural agricultural societies, and then we had the industrial society, and now we have the information society. But we, in our brains, are the same things. And so if you want to know what humans and communities of humans need to do and want to do, realize that it is the same desires and needs and activities that have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. We're just doing it today with a different set of physics, a different set of technologies, a different set of things that shape what we can do it. So it's actually not that hard to predict the future, because the future will be just like the past, except through a different lens. What was possible before, so you could call into a radio station and you could give out a little short announcement that was like a tweet, and then they would broadcast it out. They would read it out or play your recording. That's not that different than Twitter became, but it was constrained by the radio. So it was only everybody in a certain geographic area had to listen to the same set of things, and the radio DJs got to see who they played and everything else. The desire to send those messages and be part of that conversation was the same. And some of the elements of it the same. But once you made it so that it was in your pocket all the time, and that things could go and one person could amplify the voice of another, it could go viral. The idea of memes and virality, that predates the internet, but the internet made it supercharged. And what I think the most important advice I give to entrepreneurs is make sure that you're solving a real problem, and that it's a problem that's deeply rooted in humanity. And it is something that people solved in a different way before, because then you're going with the flow and you can enable something that's really powerful. And you're not trying to convince some people to work in a way that they don't want to work.
Well, I think that's fantastic advice. Rabble, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling your creation story. I appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.